And we are now going to learn more about how data protection teams can work in practice, especially in a fast-changing global environment. Because if you're not lean and agile, I bet it will be quite a struggle. And I'm glad to have Alexandra, Nicklas, and Benedikt Schweinfurth here with me today. Alexandra is Privacy Governance and Excellence Manager at Delivery Hero, and Benedikt is the Group DPO. Benedikt, Alexandra, thanks for taking the time and for talking us through how you do it in practice. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Rebecca, for having us. And I think we have the presentation title with the most buzzwords in the conference. So please bear with us. Agile, lean data protection teams in fast-changing global environments. I hope everybody can see my screen. Maybe Rebecca can give me a thumbs up if that's the case.
It works.
All right. A lot of interesting, important topics. Aim of the presentation is to move away a little bit from the legal foundations into the actual implementation and more operational aspects of building your data protection team. And for everybody who thinks this is a little bit privacy-centric, I think our insights might also be interesting for other compliance functions. So let's get right into it. Quick look at the table of contents for today. So we have an introduction to Delivery Hero, but also to our industry more generally. We are in the online delivery technology industry. And then second, we will look at management buy-in. I think that's a term that rings a bell for pretty much every privacy professional who operates at a more senior level, and how you, in our view, can aim for the optimum when engaging with your business leaders. Then thirdly, we will look at execution in a little bit more detail. Whatever the buy-in from management may be, it might not be the maximum of what you've been asking. So you will have to deal with reality. And then just to wrap up the presentation, we will look at the key takeaways again and how we think you can turn our experiences into learnings, or how we think we have done that. So over to my colleague Alexandra for the intro, Delivery Hero and online delivery tech. Alex?
Great, thanks a lot. If you can skip to the next slide, just a quick look at us as today's session speakers. So as Rebecca already said, we have Benedikt today, who's our Group Data Protection Officer, and I'm accompanying him today. I'm Alexandra, and I lead Privacy Governance and Excellence for us. And now let's dig a bit into Delivery Hero, because I think it might be a company that not everyone is super familiar with. So broadly speaking, we are a global group of companies. We were founded in 2011, and we are headquartered here in Berlin. We do operate across over 70 different countries, and we are live with over 600,000 restaurants and partners that offer their products on our platforms. Then we do also have and work with over 1.5 million riders. I think everyone has seen a rider on the street, the guys on the bicycle with a big backpack. There's a very good likelihood that these people do belong to us. And then also, very interestingly, we do operate about 7 customer platforms, and they are reflected in our global brands that you can see on this slide. So everyone that might not be super familiar with Delivery Hero, maybe on the streets, maybe on holiday, you've seen any of these company brands out on the streets. They all belong to our group of brands. Exactly. And like Benedikt already said, we are an online delivery tech. So what does that mean for privacy? One thing is pretty obvious. We do process billions of orders by millions of people every year. And what does that create? That obviously creates huge amount of data, both personal data as well as business information. And this is also only possible because we do operate with an extremely diverse ecosystem of data subjects. We do have our riders. We also do have our customer base, of course, the employees, vendors, partners, and so on. And then lastly, we also do all that and operate it by our highly complex tech stack. So at Delivery Hero, we have hundreds of in-house built tools and systems that we use to keep our platform up and running. So that gives you a quick indicator on why privacy is a super important and key topic for us. And I'll now hand over to Benedikt, who will give you an introduction into management buy-in and why this was so important for us as a company.
Thank you, Alex. That little intro didn't serve as a sales pitch. It serves to set the background and to make our point that you really have to know the organization you have been onboarded to and that you are working with. Because now a closer look at management buy-in, and if you, let's say, deconstruct that term, there's two components. There's management and there's buy-in. So management is going to be the decision takers in your organization, the management board, the leadership team, and buy-in. What are they buying into, and what are you actually selling? What you're selling as a privacy professional, you might be a chief privacy officer or data protection officer, is your vision of data protection. And you're selling that vision to your leadership team. In our case, that's management board. We are a publicly listed company, so that also includes a supervisory board. And basically, the task you are faced with is influencing that leadership team in a manner that ascertains the actual implementation of your vision of data protection and privacy. And first off, the situation is such that it's not just going to be you. It's obviously also a number of other, let's say, risk-aware functions that are trying to influence leadership in a similar manner. We have a list of, these are examples, legal, of course, internal audit, GRC functions, CISO functions, etc. And I think our first point is you have to be aware that it's not just you. You have to look at it holistically, and you also have to get a good awareness of where do you rank in the overall, let's say, priorities list for your leadership team when simply looking at the other risk-aware functions. So one example is absolute top priority at DH is, in fact, data protection, but we should always be aware that for our group of companies, and it's a matter of public record, there are other risks that are super, super important. So, for example, the riders you saw, there are certain uncertainties around the status of these riders. Are they employees? Are they freelancers? That is going to have a severe impact on our group of companies. So you need to be aware that it's not just you. And then maybe in the automotive industry, you should also be aware of privacy. I mean, it's super, super important these days for any player in that industry, but maybe the ban on petrol-fueled combustion engines might have an even bigger impact. We might not like it, but we need to be aware of that because we want to be efficient in selling our vision to the leadership team. And then next point is you should also be aware that your leadership team, at least for publicly listed companies, they have their eye on the shareholders. That is always going to be top of mind for them. And in our case, especially, we have seen certain pressures from the markets over the last years. Our stock price is down 70% since January, roughly, 2021. And we've had several public, let's say, strategy changes. We went from an extreme focus on hyper growth to a strong focus on profitability. Delivery Hero being a company that has not yet turned a profit. We are very close and we are very much confident that we will reach this goal. But the point is the shareholders, that is your leadership team's top of mind topic. And it does relate into legal requirements. And sometimes we forget as privacy professionals that our leadership or business executives, they do have a fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the company. We are, I think, all familiar with the business judgment rule, and that is always going to be top of mind for them. So that's your position, that's your situation in the sales pitch. If you kind of continue that metaphor, what are you actually selling? You're selling your vision of data protection, and for that you will need a secured budget. And when you are trying to secure your budget, I think it's 2023, you will rarely, I hope, in a global organization, find a place where nothing has been done yet on data protection. So you will be faced with people planning, plain and simple. That is exactly what you will have to do. We believe that the people on your team are going to be the main resource, and they are going to be really what's going to decide over the success of your program. And in large companies, at DH, for example, we are very active in terms of M&A. And in any case, even if your company is a bit more inactive on that side, you will find people in the existing team, and you will have to deal with that. So your vision relates to people. It also relates to other resources, just very briefly, that you will have to get clarity on. So what is going to be the role of, we call it consultancy, external legal services, for example? What is the role of tools? AI is getting increasingly important. It has a whole privacy aspect to itself that we are not going to look at. I think we've had plenty of presentations on that. And then also travel for global organizations. And we believe, and we will talk about that at some more length later, we believe in community building. And that does only work in post-COVID times with a certain amount of travel. So what is the amount for that? But getting back to people, the people planning is absolutely essential. And again, you will find pre-existing team members that you will have to examine very closely. And it's absolutely worth the effort. So what is the seniority going to be? Where are you going to base those people? What skill sets are you going to look for? And then also, what kind of personalities are going to be on your team? That is going to change, and that is going to be driven by outside influences at all times. So that's absolutely worth the effort. We would like to stress people planning as their main priority. So just very briefly, you want to close to say, you want to be convincing with your management team, and we have a few ideas on how to do that. So first off, you need to know your laws, and you need to know them, especially as a privacy professional, from every angle. So just yelling 4% of annual turnover is very 2018. I think we have moved beyond that. We have so many decisions now that you can do better, but you also have to see the cross-references between the GDPR and other regulatory frameworks that might be upcoming, such as the AI Act, or that might already have been passed, such as the DSA. In the case of Delivery Hero, one example would be the upcoming Platform Work Directive, which is basically related to the intersection between employment law and also data protection law. So on top of that, you also need to know your business better than anybody else. And I am a firm believer that the law actually requires you to do exactly that. That's 100% essential, not just the business judgment rule and keeping in mind the fiduciary duty of your management team, but also the GDPR itself actually refers to the state of the art. We all have known the risk-based approach for some time. So super important. Second, thirdly, know your allies. You need to become that trusted partner throughout your organization, because without support from others, you will not get anywhere. And we spoke about the leadership or management team, but also other parties in your organization are super important. And you need to know who those, we call the multipliers, are, the people that are really willing and ready to work with you. And kind of connected to that, lastly, listen. So when facing a management team, you should be very willing to listen, because it's all about, in our view, utilizing the variety of perspectives. And you should be aware that your management team absolutely will generally be a circle of highly skilled, highly professional executives, and they have very valuable perspectives to provide. And that way, you're going to reach that compromise, because that one requires understanding. So just to wrap up this section of the presentation, if we want to move away from the sales pitch metaphor a bit, it's all about building a sustainable data protection coalition based on, I would say, thorough and detailed and realistic planning, based on the mindset we've just explained, and based on your conversation with the leadership team, but also on the left-hand side, being very, very close to the, I call them risk-aware parties within your organization. And I have a especially strong focus on the international network. If you are spread over 70 countries as we are, you will have to deal with your counterparts in Qatar, in Kenya, in Singapore, in South Korea. So that is important, but then also you should at all times embrace the, I call them opportunity-aware functions in your organization, because it's only going to work if there's a balance between all parties. And then once you get a hang of that, you should be very successful with your data protection program. And that's the foundation of our approach at the Age. We will now look at the execution, because And if you aim for the optimum, that is absolutely what you should be doing. It's not guaranteed that you will get the optimum. You will get something. And on a spectrum, this might look like this in terms of available resources, right? You have the absolute optimum at the top. You have the what we call the Article 38, subsection 2 GDPR violation at the bottom. When you are understaffed and under-resourced, I hope that is not going to be the case for anybody here. And then in the middle, you have reality, the actual decision by your management board or other business leadership team. And in 2023, that is pretty much a moving target. It's going to shift. Companies like Delivery Hero are very agile, very dynamic. We have a lot of restructurings on an ongoing basis, but that's going to be the case for most of the companies going forward. We are in a time of multiple crises. We have various wars ongoing. We have inflation, rising interest rates, etc. So you will have to deal with that. And we have a few practical tips on how to deal with that reality. And I'm jumping over back to Alex for the first part.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so obviously, now we want to share some insights on how Delivery Hero is dealing with this reality that we're in. And the first point is the focus on efficiency and scalability. So for us, the foundation of this is actually set by a super diverse data protection office. So obviously, as you all are familiar with, we do have legal professionals on board. They are working on the very common legal topics, privacy statements, contracting, and in general, legal advice for our stakeholders. But then on top, we do also have tech professionals that support us in bridging the gap between legal and tech, and that are responsible for our privacy solutions and tooling. And then we spoke a lot about community. And for us, the key to keeping that community alive is also having a part of our data protection team being responsible for exactly that. So we do have people on board who are raising awareness and engagement across all our 70 plus countries worldwide. And then last but not least, we do have this governance and excellence layer where we do work on as much as we can scalable processes, and we do assess and check in on the privacy maturity on all our entities on a regular basis. And we're trying as much as we can to support in projects and to become a bridge to the business. So that's what we see as kind of the core foundation. And then there is one more approach that I would also like to share. And I'm sure everyone has heard of the plan, do, check, act cycle, but just quickly going into it again, we truly believe in actually checking what we do. So Benedikt talked a lot about defining the goals, the scope, getting the management buy-in. But then obviously it's also super crucial for us to act on the things that we planned and promised. And then as the last point, the checkpoint, for us in this super fast changing global environments, it's key to continuously check what are we doing, how do our processes look like, and challenge ourselves and be open to changing them. So the amount of processes we change on a regular basis to accommodate the changes that happened in our business environment is very, very high. And then last point on focus on efficiency is actually on how solutions do look for us. And Benedikt, if you click to the next slide, exactly. A solution for us is made out of three key aspects. The first one being every solution or most of the solutions we deliver should ideally be as scalable as possible. For us, that means a solution that is applicable across our entities and ideally also applicable across multiple legislations. Second point is pragmatic. We've made the experience that the solutions we deliver should be as easy to implement and easy to understand, I also want to say, as possible, so that the business can actually make use of the solution we are offering. And then last point, and that also links back to the title of our presentation, is fast. What we've experienced is that all our solutions need to meet the requirements of our fast-paced industry. Otherwise, if you want to spend too much time on finding a solution, too much legal back and forth, the business surpasses you and maybe your ideas will not be considered. So these are the three lessons learned that we have with regard to focus and efficiency. And now I'm handing back over to Benedikt for some insights on our international network.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. So we've mentioned the international network, just a brief, more detailed look into that. And I think that's also coming from our experiences at Delivery Hero. We have a great deal of diversity in our organization. I think China is one of the very few countries that we are not operating in, but other than that, there's a very, very broad variety. And community building, we are calling that relentless community building. We are really, I would say we are obsessed with that because it sounds fluffy, and then you hold a summit every 6 months or once a year, and then that is it. And that's not how we want to do it. We believe that building a community across borders, across thousands of kilometers of distance and across cultures requires not only trust and honesty, but real dedication. So it means it's something you have to actually invest in. And we think that is going to be one of your most important investments. So just to kind of look again at your allies, and that's pretty, I would say, headquarter or central focused, right? We talked about how you have to get everybody on board in your risk-aware functions, then everybody in product and tech, marketing and sales. So that 360 holistic view we've talked about, and that is actually mirrored on the international level. You can see here in light blue that in most organizations, there will be an international counterpart to these more headquarter-focused or more headquarter-based functions. And those are our most valuable collaboration partners, because if you look very briefly at their skill set, then there's a few things. They will definitely always know the local laws and local language and the local customs, which is absolutely invaluable. Next point would be they don't know necessarily data protection. It's hopeful thinking, and you are very lucky if that is the case. But I think you cannot always expect that, especially in countries where you have a low level of actual enforcement, or you have certain laws that are just in passing, for example. One thing that comes to mind is, I think, Pakistan. So that's what you are here for in a central function as a global privacy professional. And then they can provide very, very valuable support. And if you don't, I would say, maintain and cherish your international community, it might end up being a waste of time and money instead of providing valuable support. So we strongly believe that we have taken the right decision in creating the International Privacy Program Management Workstream. We think it's worth it, and we think we are more efficient if we all work together. So kind of related to that, we are also, to get a bit more specific, we are strong believers in the 3-tiered global privacy organization, which is going to be led, in our case, by a team at Central, which is very close, as I mentioned, to global group management, which is that trusted business partner for tech and product leadership, because we are actually also the most staffed team. And then that team is responsible for the global strategy development and also for the rollout of group-wide or global tools. I think every privacy professional has encountered some kind of pain with a global privacy management solution. It is a lot of work, and it's definitely worth it, but it's also, I would say, highly challenging. So that's the central function. That is supported by a regional function, by somebody with a knowledge of the region in a broader sense. That's again going to be an experienced privacy professional, a full-time equivalent role, working on privacy exclusively, and also able to kind of rationalize legal requirements that might differ across jurisdictions in that region, but still might be similar. And then on the local level, we believe it's possible to have support from legal colleagues or from GRC colleagues who have had no previous privacy experience, because they can actually be supported by the central and regional functions, and they can actually learn by doing, and they are being guided by seasoned professionals. They don't necessarily have to work in privacy full time, and they can also report to a non-privacy supervisor, and they have this very, very valuable skill set of knowing the local language and culture in their country. So relentless community building, one of our top priorities. There's another one, and that's awareness. So back to Alex to dive into awareness raising and building.
Exactly. I think everyone here has heard more than enough about awareness in general, but let me quickly onboard you to how we see awareness at Delivery Hero and what the 4 pillars of awareness for us are and our focus groups. So first of all, of course, we have some legal requirements that we are following for all employees. So we do offer yearly mandatory trainings. On top of that, also, we want to keep it interesting, right? We want to keep people aware and engaged. So our approach is campaigning for privacy on a very regular basis. For example, by storytelling on the internet, we share advertisements about us as a team so that people can get to know us, but also maybe some interesting facts about most recent changes in law or other interesting cases about privacy that maybe everyone can relate to. Then the second group we like to focus on, and I'm sure other companies here have similar setups, they just call them differently. We do have a community of privacy heroes. What does that mean? For us, a privacy hero is someone who voluntarily is interested in privacy. And what we do offer for these people is a continuous training program that goes on over several weeks, where we do introduce them into the concepts of privacy and give them as much knowledge as we can share in these couple of weeks training them. Why do we do that? We truly believe that having maybe a couple of people who are interested in privacy and that have received training, splitting the word into their departments and raising privacy awareness wherever they can, maybe in upcoming projects, etc., is very, very valuable instead of continuously approaching everyone with the same amount of information. Then as the third pillar, we do have the privacy personnel, of course. Benedikt already just mentioned it. For example, we do have data protection coordinators locally that might not come with a privacy background. So for these groups, we of course also offer ongoing legal trainings and other education. Also case studies are being shared. And then I also want to kind of turn this around a little bit, because for this group of people, it's also very, very important from our side to learn from the local teams, because they have the experience with their local laws, their local authorities, and we have a lot to learn from them as well. So we're trying to keep this a two-way street, this awareness and exchange that we have with our privacy personnel. And then last pillar, and we're kind of singling them out a little bit because they have such high relevance for us as a company, is tech and product. And actually what we do there is we have a little bit of a, I would say, separate approach to keeping them aware and engaged with what we do. And that's gamification. So what we've launched is a so-called privacy scoring initiative, where different tech teams basically fill out simple questionnaires that we have created, and they are being ranked with regard to their privacy compliance. And at the end of the day, their rankings will be shown on a dashboard that is accessible to everyone in our organization. So what does that create? That creates this atmosphere of competition between teams, because no one wants to be at the bottom of that list, right? Obviously, you want to be one of the top performers when it comes to privacy. So we already saw a couple of really great initiatives coming from that. And we're really proud of this initiative as well. So that's it with regard to awareness. And I think now we're already running late in time. Let's get into some key takeaways from our experience at Delivery Hero that we want to share with everyone. So first point, we talked about it a lot, but it's really key for us to focus on relationships. Finding allies and listening to people is key for that. Then on top of that, and it sounds simple, but it's actually not, know your organization, because there's so much more behind than just knowing your organization. You need to know your strategy, the business strategy, the risk appetite when it comes to certain scenarios. You need to know the people, who to approach. You need to understand your product, especially for us as a tech company. Then you need to be familiar with your international landscape. Where are you live? What are local customs that maybe are worth considering? And then, of course, last but not least, you obviously also need to know privacy. And then as third point that we want to share is keep it interesting. Gamification, for example, and also entertaining the privacy community, keeping everyone engaged by doing different initiatives and measures is super important, because only then people stay engaged and spread the word about privacy. And then the last point, and that's the final point that I want to wrap up with, and it's from our side in this fast changing environment, maybe the most important one is stay open-minded, expect change and embrace it. There will be changes. You'll need to work on some processes again. You'll need to create new projects. That's how it goes. And at Delivery Hero, we really learned to embrace that as a privacy community. And with that, I want to thank everyone for your attention. Obviously, if you have questions afterwards, feel free to reach out. You see our email addresses on the slide. And thank you, everyone, for your attention.
Thank you both so much. I think your agility and your progressiveness really shows into in what you have been sharing with us. Benedikt, my favorite phrase was yelling 4% is very 2018. So it really shows how the data protection discussion has evolved since then. So thank you both for taking us with you on this journey and really for sharing how you do it, because I think more examples like that really give all the other industries, all the other companies and new players in the market a bit like a North Star, what can be achieved if you follow the tips that you've been giving us. So thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for having us. Bye.
Bye.